How do you release the golf club? It's a question I get asked on a day-to-day basis, and getting it right and getting it wrong can determine if you are going to be a good golfer or not. Let's start off with a standard basic release that's going to get 95% of golfers to an amazing position. The most common issue I see when it comes to the release is golfers are very much chicken winging, scooping, getting very narrow here. So it's important to identify why that is. So an analogy I love to use is essentially if you are that golfer who's getting buckled in, you are like a fish's tail. What do I mean by that? If I place my hands together and you imagine a fish swimming, they move their tail side to side and that sort of propels them this way. You are a fish's tail. You are moving your wrists back and forth, flexion, extension, but essentially you're moving them back and forth like this. Now, what does a good release involve? It does involve a little bit of this, but to ensure we get some great release and some width to our swing, we've got to do this motion as we are rotating our forearms over each other. Now, when we watch the best players in the world, they are closing the face down super quick. So the first myth that I want to sort of debunk or bust is stabilizing down the face. There's no such thing. Every golfer is releasing that face at a super fast rate, but in essence, they are rotating the forearms over. That's one of the key ways we release the club whilst having this beautiful width. Now, so you don't have to just take my word for it. Let's look at some visual examples. In all these examples, and I've got body release and roll release golfers up here, they are all releasing the forearms, they are rotating them over, they are extending their body towards the target. There's a huge amount of commonalities in here. The first thing that I love to do is just sort of play around with your trail hand. A lot of golfers like the feeling of using their trail hand. So let me just describe what goes on here. You will see majority of good golfers in the downswing have their trail hand pointing slightly down to the ground this way. So if I just isolate that there, you can see my trail hand is pointing slightly down to the ground. Now, for those golfers, they're going to release their ankles down into impact slightly, and this is going to give them a little bit of shaft lean. Where's my trail palm pointing? Is pointing slightly down and slightly forwards. Fantastic. Now, if you're a golfer who is scooping, where does that now point? Points up to the sky, not what we want to see. So we're down to the ground, slightly forwards. If you're releasing the club correctly, it's going to be on the side of the grip. Now, Tiger Woods, about in the year, I think it was 2000, he said it. He said one of his best swing thoughts, especially when he's hitting driver, is to feel like he's shaking hands with the target. That just matches exactly what I've said there. If my right palm is pointing down to the ground, pointing slightly forwards at impact, and then is on the side of the grip there, I'm shaking hands. In order for me to do that, I would have had to have rotated my forearms over and also had a little bit of this motion, kind of like a little bit of fish's tail, in order to release that club down to the ground. So you can see multiple things going on there. The thing that I would say most golfers struggle with is that chicken wingy sort of scoopy look. So by having that sort of rotation of the forearm, shaking hands with the target, that's going to help a lot of you golfers out. And again, the other thing that we'll see is a load of tour pros at this shaft parallel position, the follow through, will have the toe of the club basically pointing straight up to the sky. You might see some a little bit one way, a little bit other way, but majority of them are going to be pretty much toe pointing straight up to the sky. Now, how can you learn this? Because that's the key. Well, you can do some little swings where you focus on the right palm. You can go sort of open palm exercises where you go right palm down, right palm forwards, right palm on the side, and you can hit shots doing that. So if I do that here, right palm down, forwards, and on the side, and that's a nice way to learn the release. But my favorite way is a connecting the dots exercise. So what do I mean by this? Connecting the dots essentially means if we understand our downswing position here at shaft parallel to the ground, and we understand that same position but in the release shaft parallel to the ground, if we connect the dots, that means we are going to be moving through impact, and chances are we're going to have a really good impact position. What I want you to do is set up to the golf ball just like so. Take your trail hand, rest it on your trail leg. From there, without moving your body, point the club down towards the target. Don't have it all the way up here, just roughly at your belt line height. Now, the other thing I must say is when you're doing this, look at where the toe of the club is. I've pointed it straight up to the sky. Absolutely crucial you do that for now. So point that straight up to the sky there. Now, keep your head, imagine there's a circle, keep your head in the circle and stretch with your trail hand across your body to reach that position there. Now that looks like a good release. I've got great extension of the arms. I've got my pelvis towards the target, so I've got body extension. I've got a full release of the forearms. Where is my right hand on the club? Have a look as I stretch and get it. It's on the side of the grip and the toe of the club is pointing up to the sky. So that is a great way of finding that good release position. Stage 2 is now learning to move to that position. But you can't go too much too soon, we've got to build it up. And there's sort of 4 stages that we're going to run through. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is the push through. So essentially what you're going to do, very simply, is set up. You're then going to go from this set up position, no backswing, just push through to that good follow through position or release position, just like so. So push it through, and there you can see I'm in a great position, tail of the club's pointing up, arms are extended. Stage 3 is really where we connect the dots. Now we're going to do some little swings from shaft parallel to shaft parallel. And the key is I want you to hold your follow through for 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds, double check, where's the ball gone? Where's my body? Where's the club face? Where's my hand? Where are my arms? Double check all of those checkpoints that we sort of spoke about earlier. So if I do that here for you, little shaft parallel, hold that follow through position. Let's see what happens here. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, ball's gone straight, arms are extended, pelvis extended, toe pointing up to the sky, right palm on the side. Tick, 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 tick. Got all of them right. Now stage 4, let's do some full swings. Let's start to progress it on. So if I play that back, that is a dead straight golf shot, beautiful strike. Let's see how I did, and it looks like I got a pretty good release in there, hitting most of the checkpoints. Definitely things that I work on in my game, but that is a pretty good example right there. So let's now talk through a topic that can get a little bit spicy in the golf industry, as whole methods are sort of built off of this. But I want to give you my perspective, my view, and that is the difference between a roll release and a body release, and knowing which one you are. So here are some keys about both releases. In both releases, you will see a fair amount of body rotation on the way through. In both releases, you will see golfers do a little bit of that fish's tail release. And in both releases, you will see golfers rotate the forearms over. And in both releases, the face will be closing at a very, very fast rate. So in both releases, that all happens. Hence why learning that sort of baseline that we just went through is crucial. Now, what are some slight differences? Well, the key is your club face determines your release. And I get this all the time. I go, Giles, I want to have a body release. And I go, fantastic. If your club face is in the right position, you can learn that. If it's not, either A, you're not going to have a body release, you're just going to have a standard release, or B, we're going to have to change your club face to then allow you to change your release, because club face determines release. Now, if we just, for simplicity, let's just say every single golfer on the planet, this isn't what happens, but let's just say for simplicity, every single golfer on the planet pretty much hits exactly the same follow through. A roll release golfer will be a golfer who has the face a little bit more open in this position, toe up to leaning slightly back. So they will need less body rotation because they need more forearm rotation. So sort of see it as 2 sort of sliding scales. If you need a little bit more forearm rotation, you're going to need a little bit less body rotation. If you go the other way, you need a bit more body rotation, you're going to need a little bit less forearm rotation. So if you're in a position where the face is slightly open, obviously to get from here to our finish line, you've got to rotate that face over a little bit more. You might see maybe 5 degrees less, for example, as a number, body rotation in those golfers, but they might have more hand speed over. What is a body release golfer? A body release golfer, toe of the club is pointing slightly down to the ground, or face is slightly down to the ground here. This therefore means, again, if we're trying to hit that same follow through position, you're naturally going to have less forearm rotation on the way through. And as a byproduct, you can then have more body rotation on the way through. So that's just a nice simple way of thinking of it. Take a look at your club face position in this shaft parallel to the ground. If it's toe up, you're going to be very neutral. If it's leaning back on itself, you're going to be more roll release. If you're leaning slightly forwards, you're going to be more body release. And that's where then the conversation of feels come in, and that's where you got to understand that a feel is a feel. It's not exactly real. Some golfers might feel like they hold it off. Some golfers might feel like they flick it. It gets very complicated when you start to talk about feels, because feels are just feels. They're not absolutes. Now, the final thing I'll say is it's exactly the same for driver. The principles are still the same. You can still do the same exercise of here, reach for it, toe pointing up. Everything's exactly the same. So if you get it right for your irons, you can get it right with your driver. But if you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and the channel a subscribe. I also offer online coaching. The link is down in the description, and be sure to send it to your buddies to help support them and support the channel.